From WBBZ-TV Sports, it's time to beat the champ. Now, here are your hosts, Paul Peck and Sue Novoitsky.
Hi everybody, I'm Paul Peck with Hall of Fame bowler Sue Novoitsky, and welcome to our third week here in Lockport, New York at Allie Brandt Lanes. This is Beat the Champ, and Sue, in our first 2 weeks we've had a lot of highlights, including a record-setting 6-match winning streak by Matt White, but then he loses, and then we bring back our returning champ Geno Walh, who had a 1-pin victory to be back. We've had a lot of ups and downs and highlights in our run here at Allie Brandt.
Well, it's going to be hard to set the pace of winning a whole lot in a row when we've got the star-studded field that we have this week. We have George Szczublewski, who's new but a great bowler, well known in this area. We have Korczykowski again, great lefty, and we have Mike Zarcone, who we see almost every single month.
Yep.
So it's not going to be easy to make a big run like we've seen.
No, familiar names to our Beat the Champ viewers, and they're going to know the bowlers that they're going to see here today, and I'm sure we're going to get good competition out of it because we've got good names and we've had great bowling here at Allie Brandt Lane. So, well, let's not waste any more time. Let's get rolling. So here we are. Our first match features our returning champ Geno Walh against this gentleman, 50-year-old George Szczublewski from West Seneca, New York. And as you mentioned, Sue, even though he's making his Beat the Champ debut, he is an outstanding, well-known, long-time Western New York bowler.
Absolutely. In fact, he just went out and bowled the Senior Masters out in Las Vegas. With all the big guns, so he's no stranger to competition. And
no stranger to a good start. A strike on the first frame for George Szczublewski. And here's Geno Walh, a returning champion who eked out a narrow 1-pin victory over Bill Stoddard to wrap up last week's show here at Allie Brandt Lanes. Of course, Stoddard was the one who ended the 6-match winning streak of Matt White. So Geno Walh got a little lucky, he'll tell you that too, but he also bowled well enough to put himself in position for that, and that's not how he wanted to get started.
No, Geno has moved in a lot. He's playing pretty deep on the lane, and that one just, he's going to have to get a little deeper with that ball if he's going to use that one.
We're at Allie Brandt Lanes. We're in Lockport, New York. AllieBrandtLanes.com for all the information about the activities that they have here. Of course, named after the legendary Hall of Fame bowler from here in Lockport, Allie Brandt. We've talked an awful lot about his outstanding history. We'll talk a little more about that for those of you not familiar with who Allie is. But right there you can see it's a tough open frame to start things off for Geno Walh. At Beat the Champ TV on Twitter, hashtag Beat the Champ, and on Facebook, please like the Beat the Champ page for all of your information on qualifying and results. And we've got qualifying coming up this weekend, so make sure you get there for all the latest information. And it's a bit of a rough start here for Geno Walh, leaving a lot of pins.
Yeah, the qualifier, they're running one, which they have the luxury of doing now in the summer months. They're running one on a Wednesday night at 7 p.m., August 10th, obviously, Friday the 12th at 7 p.m. And then their normal all-day squads on Saturday and Sunday, with the finals being Sunday at 6:30.
All at Manor Lanes in Tonawanda.
Lots of opportunity to come out and give it a go.
So Geno Walh starts off with 2 open frames. I don't know that we've seen that yet in Beat the Champ, where there were 2 in a row like that, but just struggling a little bit right off the bat here. And a big opportunity for George to take control early. Second frame for George Szczublewski. And he'll leave the 10-pin. 50 years old. Oh no, it fell. I looked down, heard the crowd cheer, looked back up again, and saw it gone.
He had a messenger come over and knock it out.
That messenger was running a little late, but he got there just in time. I was going to tell you that George is 50 years old from West Seneca, supervisor at the Olin Corporation, right-handed bowler. Been bowling for half of those 50 years. Interesting story about that we'll get into. 228 average for George, who bowls regularly 4 nights a week. So now to the third frame for George. 3 consecutive strikes.
Interesting note is his mom and dad is here, but he informed me last night that his mom hasn't watched him bowl since he's been a junior bowler.
Really? See what Beat the Champ does? Beat the Champ brings everybody out, right?
Absolutely.
So now back to Geno Walh, who will have to shake off that rather rough start for the 37-year-old from Lackawanna, New York. And that's much more like it. 218 average for Geno, been bowling since he's 7 years old. Bowls regularly on Wednesday nights at Spare Time Lanes and Friday nights at Abbott Lanes. And has competed at a very high level, including some Buffalo City titles in the last couple of years. There's a look at our Castellone Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram scoreboard, manned as always by Janelle Saban. Early look at the scores between Geno and George. And it'll be that tricky 10-pin again for Geno to finish off a fourth frame spare.
Tough break for him there with George having the first three and having the rough first and second frame start. He's going to need all the strikes now that he can put together.
And he'll get the spare in the fourth frame. And we move back to George Szczublewski. Tuesday nights he bowls at the Edge. Wednesdays in that league we've talked a little bit about, the sport conditions on the oil pattern at Spare Time. Friday night at Wimbledon Lanes, and Saturday in the travel league with the gang over at Transit Lanes.
Yeah, the Edge League is also a sports shot league, but it's very difficult. Those are very impressive averages for those sports shot leagues.
Good strike. That's 4 in a row for George Szczublewski. Yeah, I didn't mention the averages. 205 at the Edge, 213 at Spare Time, 228 at Wimbledon, and 225 in the Travel League. Those are very impressive numbers.
Very.
Interestingly enough, George, you know, I mentioned to you he's been bowling for 25 of his 50 years. Quit bowling in 1991, took a 20-year break from the sport, and then came back. And maybe that's part of the reason why his mom hasn't seen him bowl in a while. I knew I didn't hear from him for a while.
Well, there you go.
You wonder, where's George?
I thought he moved away.
And there's the first non-strike for George Szczublewski.
A great shot nonetheless.
And he's out to a rather early commanding lead here in this match against Geno Walh. First match of the day here this week at Allie Brandt Lanes in Lockport.
Yeah, he's got a 52-pin lead already in the third frame.
This feels like a good time to take a short break. We'll be right back with more action on Beat the Champ. Welcome back to Beat the Champ. Let's get back to the action here on WBBZ-TV.
So it's the eighth frame now for George Szczublewski. Got a 20-pin lead at the moment, and he'll leave one pin that looked like it might be ready to go down, but it did not. So Geno Walh's kind of gotten himself back in this match a little bit. With a couple of strikes.
Well, it's closer, but it's still 39 pins.
Right.
And he is running out of real estate here. It's getting a little late. Again, the one game matches.
Spare in the eighth frame for George Szczublewski. He's got 8 career 300 games, what we're talking about, and a high 824 series. He's won 6 different amateur bowling tour titles, has George Szczublewski. And I mentioned to you that he had gotten out of the sport. Don't forget, coming up at the end of our show, following the third match of the day, it's our Gary Poole's Great Grill Giveaway Watch and Win word. And then you can take that word and go to WBBZ.TV and enter to win a Broilmaster H4 Deluxe Gas Grill from Gary Poole's and Leisure. Contest rules and registration at WBBZ.TV. No purchase necessary. Strike in the ninth frame for George Szczublewski. Ups the lead to over 50 pins.
Well, at this point, Geno can strike out for 193, and George has already a 192 secured in the ninth frame.
So it's looking like it's going to be a one-win run for Geno Walh. But he did get to take home the big trophy.
Yep. And again, we talked about it. This is a really strong field today. There's no gimmies here today.
And look on the face of Geno kind of tells you what happened here for him today. And that tough start, I think, just puts you in a hole mentally, doesn't it?
Well, when the other person doubles and you have 2 opens,
Spare in the 9th frame for Geno. Next up, winner of this match, which it looks like it's headed towards being George, will take on a Beat the Champ veteran in Brandon Korczykowski, who will be bowling his 4th Beat the Champ show. Haven't seen Brandon in a couple of weeks, couple of months rather, but we know he can compete at a high level. We also know he's a lot of fun to be around.
He's another colorful, one of our colorful bowlers on this show.
Thankfully, we have a big post in between us and Brandon, which might deter Brandon from having too much byplay with us during the match.
That's right. Or maybe not.
Maybe not. He might not just be able to see us. Here's Geno finishing things out in the 10th frame. You might have heard that sigh of desperation.
I have a feeling Geno's going to be happy to get this match over with.
Yeah, I think so too. And you know, you feel bad for him.
He never really found it out there today.
Nope. So one more for Geno to post his final score. And a good spare pickup. So that means Geno Walh puts a 172 on the board here, but it's not going to be enough, and George Szczublewski will roll out here in the 10th frame and roll his way to his first Beat the Champ victory. Good strike right there, 10th frame. And a nice little smile on the face of George and a slap of the hand of his competitor. And there you get a look at the scoreboard, and it's going to be a win for George. We're just waiting to post up that final score. Well, after we had that run of Matt White's amazing run of 6 in a row, we are having a hard time. It's 3 in a row where guys have won and lost the next match.
I mean, it just goes to show you how great Matt actually bowled. Because it's not that easy out there. They miss a little bit to the right, it's not coming back, and they're leaving washouts, and they're leaving 2-pin light hits, and then they cut it a little short. It's going high, it's going Brooklyn, and Matt was pretty solid. So
yeah, nice spare pick up there for George Szczublewski to finish things off with a 218 to 172 win, and George Szczublewski will move on to our next match here at Allie Brandt Lanes in Lockport, where he takes on Brandon Korczykowski. So if you want to have an impromptu spelling bee, Szczublewski and Korczykowski in our next match here on Beat the Champ. We'll talk to Geno and to George about this match and preview the next one when we come back to Lockport. You're watching Beat the Champ. It's a 218 to 172 victory for George Szczublewski over Geno Walh. And Geno, those 2 opens to start off. Aside from putting you behind on the scoreboard, how do you wrap your head around something like that?
I made a dumb ball change. I had a good look in practice with it, and then he came out firing, and it's hard to bring back once he comes out firing. It's
and you're thinking about it, aren't you?
Not really. It's just I wasn't really throwing the ball good either, so he was throwing the ball good. So that's about all I can do.
Yeah. Well, George certainly was throwing the ball very well, Sue, wasn't he?
yeah, George, coming off the Senior Masters in Las Vegas, was this shot a little softer, a little easier for you than what you saw?
Yeah, definitely a little easier. So different environment. So fun to bowl, Geno, all friends. So
we saw that nice high five afterwards, so we know you're friends.
Yeah. Right. All right, well, George is not done yet because he's got another tough competitor coming up in Brandon Korczykowski. Should be a great match between these 2 guys. We'll have that for you when we come back. It's Beat the Champ at Allie Brandt Lanes in Lockport. We're back right after this. Szczublewski and Korczykowski. Is there anything more Buffalo than those 2 guys battling in a match on a Beat the Champ bowling show, huh? That pretty much is Buffalo all wrapped up in one, isn't it?
It's the
but
battle
that's
of
what's
the
great.
skis.
Yeah, it's so there's George Szczublewski in this second match of the day at Allie Brandt Lanes against Brandon Korczykowski. George coming off the win over Geno Walh, and he will start things off for us.
Hey, I resemble that remark.
Yes, you do, Navoyski.
Good start by George.
Yeah, I learned a long time ago that if you want to talk about sports in this town, you better learn how to pronounce Polish names.
Yeah.
You better learn how to make those things work. So.
There's a lot of us around, and our parents all took us bowling.
Well, and you're right about that. And I always found that it was very interesting that and I'm sure you can back this up for me. The traditional Polish people pronounce it differently than sort of the Americanized version. So you can ask someone how to say that name, and you might get 2 or 3 different versions of it, and they're all correct in their own way.
Right. Both these guys sort of have the Americanized version of the Polish, but mine is definitely Polish. Doesn't look at all the way it sounds. But they're still complicated nonetheless. There's lots of vowels and there's lots of letters in those names.
Yeah, well, we've got, let's see, we've got 4 Z's, 3 Z's in this match amongst the names. So, and off the bat, we've got 2 strikes, 2 X's, because we've got 2 strikes on the board. And here's Brandon Korczykowski, a very familiar name to Beat the Champ watchers and viewers. Just couldn't get that 7 to fall. This is his 4th appearance on Beat the Champ for Brandon Korczykowski. He has a 1-win and 3-loss record, including 1 weekly win that came back earlier in the year up at the Kearns Avenue Bowling Center when he won week 5 of Beat the Champ.
And this show has made Brandon want to reinvent his game to some sort.
Yeah, because he's been in a little bit of a slump. He hasn't really been a part of the show the last couple of weeks, and I wonder if that made him think that there needed to be some changes.
I know he bowls at Transit and the Tuesday Night Sweeper, and those tend to be all sports shots as well, too. In fact, I had the honor of watching these two sit together last night and plan their strategy for today.
Oh, I see how that works, huh?
I hope they don't have anything up their sleeves.
You saw our Twitter address and Facebook Beat the Champ for all the latest information on qualifying. We're going to talk more about that because it's coming up soon. And George Szczublewski's got a pair of strikes in the first 2 frames. Qualifying is coming up very soon. Matter of fact, next weekend. It starts this Wednesday, as a matter of fact. Wednesday, August 10th, 7 o'clock. Friday the 12th at 7, and then Saturday all afternoon, Sunday all afternoon. And the top 24 roll-off will be Sunday the 14th at 6:30, all at Manor Lanes in Tonawanda. And we're going to tape our next set of shows up at Manor Lanes on Tuesday, August 16th. 3rd frame for George. 3rd strike.
Great shot. Well, they've been this month they had over 200 entries here, which is spectacular for this season, for the summertime, when people are generally not even bowling. But it helps to have all these added squads, so you can bowl on a weekday and a Wednesday and a Friday. And if you have something planned on the weekend, you've got other days you can bowl. So it's a good chance to get out and compete. And all you have to be available for is Sunday night at 6:30 for the finals.
So Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday are your opportunities to qualify for next month's series of shows here on Beat the Champ as we continue our tour of Western New York. Here's Korczykowski with a big strike in the 3rd frame. Brandon Korczykowski, better known, or at least in his own world, better known as BK the Tank.
Yeah.
Were we supposed to call him that today? I think he might be mad at me that we haven't been calling him that.
We're going to have to ask him a little bit about that later.
I'm afraid to ask him about that. 42 years old from East Amherst, a mill operator at Arubis Brass up in North Buffalo. 229 average for Brandon, been bowling for 32 of his 42 years, and as you mentioned, Tuesday nights he bowls at the Edge, and then on Thursdays at Transit Lanes. And as we've learned early on in our run here on Beat the Champ, one of the more outsized personalities of Western New York bowlers. And if he keeps rattling off strikes like he has, then he can do whatever he wants to do.
I've gotten a chance to get to know him a little bit this past year from, bowling at Transit. And he has a great passion for this sport. He's very animated, but he works very hard, and it means a lot to him. So as a bowler, I really can appreciate his dedication to the game.
And we love his personality.
Absolutely.
At some point, he will banter back and forth with us in the middle of this match. I'm just waiting for it to happen. Except the way George is bowling right now, Brandon needs to be focused on his bowling game because George is perfect through the first 4 frames.
And I can tell you from watching the matches, these lanes have broken down to be a little bit challenging. Not your typical house shot where you can, if you miss to the right, it's just coming back. I mean, I've seen over and over and over again, if they make a bad shot, they get a bad result. So in this case, these guys really have to buckle down and make good shots to strike.
How much can the guys prepare for this, particularly when we're bowling later in the day like we are here on our 3rd show?
Well, you can't, but the fact that these guys are seasoned tournament bowlers, like I mentioned, George bowled the Senior Masters, coming back to bowling at home after you bowl an event that's a national tournament like that makes these conditions seem a little bit softer, a little bit easier, because they are so challenging when you get out there on the national stage. So they're just really that good a bowler that they're making these lanes look this easy.
5 consecutive strikes to start for George Szczublewski. So Brandon Korczykowski, who has 3 strikes in 4 frames, got to keep the heat on. And pins flying all over the place there, but it leaves one still standing.
Yeah, he missed the target a little bit to the left there. He's very fast in his approach. If you see that his feet move very, very quickly, and sometimes that can lead you to be a little unsteady at the line, but he generates a lot of power in his approach.
There's a mid-match look at our Castellone Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram scoreboard. Currently, at this moment, it's a 23-pin advantage for George over Brandon. 3 Amateur Bowling Association titles, 3 Amateur Bowling Tour titles for Brandon Korczykowski. Has won a number of Buffalo Bowling Association team titles. And an outstanding resume does the Tank.
We're going to be back with more Beat the Champ bowling action in just a minute. Welcome back to Beat the Champ. Let's get back to the action here on WBBZ-TV.
7 strikes in a row for George Szczublewski, and he'll rest up a moment and turn it over to Brandon. So it's a 61-pin edge at the moment for George. 61!
Oh my God.
You're as close to the scoreboard as you're closer than we are.
It's 41.
My eyes are bad.
Oh, couldn't get that to trip over and knock the pin down. Yeah, that's the kind of breaks that you're going to need, particularly when the way George is bowling right now.
Absolutely.
And Brandon knows it.
There was nothing wrong with that shot.
Nope.
Just true tap.
Uh-oh. Not what Brandon wanted there. Tough break in the 7th frame, particularly with what he's facing in his opponent right now.
Absolutely.
Well, you know, again, I think some of the things that I've learned as we've done this show, Sue, is that it is hard to keep your opponent out of your head sometimes. And yes, you always want to bowl your own game and you want to focus on doing what you can do, but you can't ignore the fact that you're up against a guy who's got a 7-bagger, and you know there is no margin for error.
Sometimes it's easier said than done.
Same kind of a deal there.
There's no defense, but you know, you still know what you got to do, and that makes you put your own pressure on yourself.
Sure. And sometimes pressure alters things that you would normally not do.
And very much so in bowling. It's very mental, and you're relying on your muscles being loose, and the minute you start thinking and your muscles tighten up, it changes your game entirely.
Spare in the 8th frame for Brandon Korczykowski. Still leaves him trailing by more than 30 pins, and we go back to George. George Szczublewski, 7 consecutive strikes. And the streak comes to an end. Well, it looks like somebody put crazy glue on the bottom of that 10 pin. It wobbled, but it would not go down, and after 7 in a row, the streak comes to an end, and as we talked about a little earlier, I'm thinking maybe, but still no 300 game here on Beat the Champ.
Well,
Spare in the 8th frame for George.
I can't speak for George, but as a bowler, by the time you get to 7, you can't help but start thinking a little bit about it.
We're
I'm
all
sure
thinking
it was
about
there
it.
somewhere.
We're all thinking about it. Is that sort of the point when you know, around that 7th frame when it moves to, oh, I got a shot at it here?
Yeah, you
don't think that in the 5th, but you think that in the 7th?
You try very hard to push it out of your head in the 7th frame, but...
Well, he comes right back and grabs another one in the 9th frame, so it's a sizable lead. I don't want to throw Brandon off with any specifics.
Clearly nothing's going to go his way now.
That look sort of says it all. You kind of know what Brandon's thinking. He doesn't hide his emotions much at all. He is fun to watch. We really enjoy watching him be a part of our show. He is an oversized personality in both, in all sorts of ways.
One of these days he'll get his desired result here. He'll just keep going back to the drawing board.
You know, it is kind of interesting to watch because as big as he is, he's probably the biggest bowler that's been. I mean, it's sort of all arms and legs, and the ball looks so small in relative relation to his size. So is that present a little more of a challenge when you're taller like that? Doesn't change anything?
Not really. I'd say at the end of the day, you really do need a good knee bend. You need to be really solid at the line. So if anything, I think over time maybe it could bother your knees because you're really holding yourself up, and there's a lot to you. But I've always thought that the long arm swing was an advantage. So.
Because it generates more power, doesn't it?
It does, but when it's smooth, when it's long and straight, it actually keeps the ball on line better than when your elbows flare or something. When your elbows flare and you chicken wing it, you end up having all kinds of trouble. When you're smooth and straight like that, ball just stays on line better.
Right. One more throw for Brandon to post the final score. Final throw of the 10th frame. Yeah, a lot of wobble on the 7 pin, but it wouldn't go down, and it's a 205 on the board for Brandon Korczykowski, and a chance for George Szczublewski to finish things out here and grab his 2nd win in a row. Yeah, that one just did not make the right to left hook and leaves him the picket fence of 4 pins on the left side.
We've seen a few of those out there today, and where they've come up a little bit light, and that's just what I mean about the challenge of the lane condition. On a true house shot, that will recover. Right. And that's whether it's because in the beginning there was people playing out and people playing in, and it made that little track in there that actually becomes a hang spot. So that when the ball gets out there, it doesn't turn around because it's sitting in that oil hang spot, which is probably what happened because you had guys way to the right and then Matt way in. Sure.
So because of the amount of bowling that's gone on here, that house shot has gotten deteriorated.
It's been altered by the balls and the pushing of the oil around.
Right. All right, so one more throw here for George to post his final score and the victory, and put himself in position for a weekly sweep. Got a nice strike to finish it off. So George Szczublewski with a slap of the hands and a pat on the shoulder for his opponent, Brandon Korczykowski, following a 259 to 205 win. George Szczublewski has won the first 2 matches of the week here at Allie Brandt Lanes in Lockport. Next up, one of the top guys in Western New York. Can George keep the streak alive against Mike Zarcone? We will find out. We'll talk to Brandon and talk to George, wrap that match up, get you ready for the next one. When we come back to Allie Brandt Lanes in Lockport, you're watching Beat the Champ. To 205, our final score as George Szczublewski beats Brandon Korczykowski. You just keep running into the hottest guys, and you just don't seem to be getting a lot of breaks here.
Yeah, the righties, they really enjoy beating up on me, so it is what it is. Well, I'll try next month, try to get them back.
Yeah, well, I know there's a pretty good chance that you're going to be back, and one of these, you're going to get these breaks one of these days, aren't you?
1-4 is not a good record, so I'm kind of aggravated at myself, but he bowled a great game, nothing I could do.
Yes, he did, Sue. He bowled a very good game, didn't
Yeah, you bowled a great. Last night I saw you guys talking about this match today. Was there anything else on the line?
No, we never got around to it. I'll buy him a beer, though.
What did you see out there as far as, I think there's might have become a little hang spot out there? Is there a little hang spot out there for you?
Yeah, I moved in a little bit, straightened up my line a little bit, and it opened. Obviously worked out for the first couple 7 shots there, so had a nice look. We'll see what happens this game.
Well, Sue said that she figures as a bowler, you may have been thinking when you hit that 7th frame of the possibility of the first ever Beat the Champ 300, were you?
A little bit. And when I'd be lying to say it wasn't, so
right.
I wanted it.
All right, well, guess what? You get another chance to do it. Mike Zarcone, the next opponent up for George Szczublewski, should be a great match between 2 outstanding bowlers. That is coming your way next as Beat the Champ continues from Allie Brandt Lanes in Lockport, New York. George Szczublewski will try to become the 4th Beat the Champ bowler to sweep a week, but in order to do that, he's got to beat the man in blue. That's Mike Zarcone, a veteran Beat the Champ bowler, making his 5th show appearance, but we certainly know that George is hot. 218, 172 win over Geno Walh in our first match, 259 to 205 over Brandon Korczykowski in our last match. But Mike Zarcone's going to put up quite the test. We'll see if George is up for it. Here we go, 3rd match of the day from Allie Brandt Lanes in Lockport. And in typical fashion, pretty much the result we've gotten out of George most of the time.
Great shot.
And here's Mike Zarcone, 48 years old, from Tonawanda, New York. As I mentioned, this is his 5th appearance on Beat the Champ. 4 wins and 3 losses in those previous appearances, including 1 weekly win. He took the big trophy home once already, and that happened week 17 up at the Tonawanda Bowling Center. And Mike with a strike in the first frame. And Mike Zarcone, one of the outstanding, high-quality bowlers in Western New York, part of the reason why this fall he will be inducted into the Greater Buffalo USBC Hall of Fame.
Well-deserved on Mike's part. Watching Mike out here today, this is a shot that Mike should do well on. He favors the inside line, which is what we have here today. That's the most consistent part of the lane. If you see, he's playing inside between 3rd and 4th arrow.
So in a lot of ways, Mike is the 9th qualifier, the final qualifier to make the show this week. In a lot of ways, that helps him. It serves him better than being the 1st qualifier, because you're telling me he's better when the lanes are a little dirtied up by now?
Well, yeah, there's a good point to that, but somehow Matt early on made that line work. But I will have to say that through the course of the day's bowling, it's really opened up to be a nice spot that it's good for Mike Zarcone where he plays.
All right, well, a tough leave there for George Szczublewski. You can see it's not the 7-10 split, but it's a tough one anyway, and he will not get it. So it's an open frame in the 2nd for George Szczublewski. At Beat the Champ TV on Twitter, hashtag Beat the Champ, and on Facebook, please like the Beat the Champ page for all the latest information on our upcoming qualifier, which is this coming week and next weekend. Go to the Facebook page for all the details and the up-to-the-minute results.
George is in a position here where he's going to have to really stay slow, stay down, and just make good shots every time. This probably doesn't favor him as much as it favors Mike. Not that he can't play it great, because we've seen that he can.
And there's
just like that.
George right back to striking. Mike Zarcone, again, a veteran of the show here, full-time job, works at Tops, been bowling for over 40 years, a solid 238 average, and that does not come, that comes from being busy 4 nights a week. Mike bowls Monday at Classic Lanes, a 245 average, how about that? Tuesdays at the Edge, 207, Wednesdays at Airport Lanes, 233, and then the Saturday Travel League, a 232 average, so no messing around, Mike Zarcone, man. He is bowling all the time, and he is bowling great all the time.
Yes, he really has learned to really take advantage of the house shot. He's found a niche, he has the right equipment for it, and that's where you see the 245s, the 230 averages, because he really knows how to manipulate that house shot.
You saw our Castellone Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram scoreboard early on in this match between Mike and George. And it's nothing but strikes through the first 4 frames from Mike Zarcone. Don't forget, following this match, you'll get the Gary Pools Great Grill giveaway watch and win word. Then you can go to WBBZ-TV and enter to win a Broilmaster H4 Deluxe Gas Grill from Gary Pools and Leisure. And that is coming up following this match between Zarcone and Szczublewski. So right off the bat, it's a 50-pin advantage for Mike Zarcone, thanks to 4 straight strikes to open up with. And George with 2 strikes and an open, rolling in frame number 4, he'll leave the 10-pin.
He actually couldn't have thrown it a whole lot better than that. That was just a terrible break.
And that's the condition of the lanes here after a busy day of bowling.
It's the angle that his ball's coming in at, and it just drives behind the head pin and shoots the 6 around the 10.
So it's a spare in the 4th frame for George Szczublewski. He is trying to become just the 4th Beat the Champ bowler to sweep a weekly show. We've had 3 other guys have done it before. John Palmer, Chuck Jagosinski, and most recently Matt White, who did it right here at Allie Brandt Lanes 2 weeks ago. And there's a strike in the 5th for George. And we turn it back over to the 2014 Obenauer Masters champion, Mike Zarcone. 90 career 300 games for Mike Zarcone, 82 career 800 series.
He bowls a lot, but that's still amazing.
It's still amazing. Those are amazing numbers. That is 5 in a row for Mike Zarcone. 865 is the high series. Allie Brandt laughs at that number, right? Of course, Allie Brandt famous for the 886 series for the legendary Lockport native and Hall of Fame bowler, whose 886 stood for nearly 50 years nationally as the highest. And thus, he's got his name on the Allies here. And Mike's run of strikes comes to an end in a rather ugly fashion there with the 3 pins, 3, 6, and 10 on the right-hand side. So Mike will try to finish off the spare here in the 6th frame. He gets it.
The action will continue on Beat the Champ in just a minute. Welcome back to Beat the Champ.
8th frame. Strike. And now back to George, 50 years old, from West Seneca. Mentioned he's a supervisor at the Olin Corporation. Took 20 years off from bowling, came back about 5 or 6 years ago, and is kind of dived into the deep end being back as he bowls very steadily 3-4 nights a week.
Yes, he does.
And the messenger would not knock that 10 pin down.
Yeah, his spot is kind of burned out. He's definitely around third arrow, like a little bit to the right of third arrow, and that spot is just burned. And burned is just from a lot of from these high performance bowling balls with a lot of surface, just eating away at the oil in that spot.
Right. So and when you use the word burn, you basically mean there's nothing there left to help the ball react the way that you want it to.
There's actually too little oil. The ball's going to react too much off of it. There's nothing to hold the ball back from just hooking.
Gotcha. So he has to move away from that then?
He would need to move deeper, for sure.
Oh, and a little lucky fall there on the 10 pin. Crowd liked that one, so did George. And he grabs the strike here in the 9th frame.
It's hard.
So that narrows things up a bit.
It's hard to make giant moves as a bowler. Sometimes you have to just, when people have been in separate areas, you have to make just a giant move, not just your little normal 2-in-1 moves that we had talked about earlier.
And Mike Zarcone can't get that 9 pin to go down. Boy, that sounded good, but everything kind of flew right by the 9 pin.
That's the one thing to Mike's roll. His roll is so sharp in the back end that 9 pins are probably more common for him than they would be for someone else because his ball breaks so sharply in the back.
Spare in the 9th frame for Mike Zarcone. And coming up in just a couple of minutes, don't forget the Gary Pools Great Grill Giveaway Watch and Win word. You'll get that word. You go to WBBZ-TV and enter to win the Broilmaster H4 Deluxe Gas Grill from Gary Pools and Leisure. Plenty of grilling season left here in Western New York. Nothing better than to do it on a brand new Broilmaster. Nice strike for Zarcone to start the 10th frame.
Well, Mike needed 3 pins to seal that match.
So he got it. He got all 10. So Mike Zarcone is going to end the 2-match winning streak of George Szczublewski, and Mike Zarcone going to grab his 5th Beat the Champ victory and his 2nd big trophy from Sue Navoyski. You love giving out the big giant trophies.
He couldn't get any big sets here because he's got to take his game now down to the road show to Manor Lanes.
Well, that's right. And then that, by nature of winning this match, that means Mike is going to come back and be locked into the #1 spot at Manor Lanes, where everybody else is going to have to qualify for the 9 remaining positions to bowl on our next set of shows, which will be taped on August 16th. You know, it just feels right when you show up to the lanes for a Beat the Champ event and to have Mike Zarcone there. It just feels right. 223 on the board for Mike Zarcone. Going to be good enough to win. We'll let George Szczublewski finish his match out, post his final score. It's been fun watching George. Couple of big wins for him. Gave us a little momentary pang of excitement, thinking we might get our first 300 game when he rattled off his first 7 in a row in the match against Brandon Korczykowski. So that was kind of fun. We're going to get one of those things sooner or later, aren't we? I hope so.
We absolutely will.
I keep waiting for one of them.
One odd thing about August is that there's going to be 2 qualifiers in August because the next place we go to.
The way the calendar falls, yeah.
Right. We're going to go to Manor, and after Manor, we're going to go to Classic Lanes right there down the street from Manor. So Manor's going to hold their qualifying this week and next weekend, and then Classic's going to turn around and have theirs August 25th, 27th, and 28th. So there'll be a lot of bowling to be done in August, just in time for leagues to start.
Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with a lot of bowling in August. Well, our final scores on the board. It's 223 to 184 win for Mike Zarcone. He is our weekly winner here as we wrap things up at Allie Brandt Lanes in Lockport. We'll present Mike the trophy, get his thoughts, talk to George when we come back. It's Beat the Champ at Allie Brandt Lanes in Lockport. We're back right after this. Zarcone ends the two-match winning streak of George Szczublewski and comes up with the win here in our final match of the day at Allie Brandt Lanes. Sue talked a lot about the lane conditions starting to really break down and maybe affecting your game. Was that something that you felt like happened?
Yeah, the right lane got hard for me. I really had a hard time with the right lane, which initially was my good lane, but then I never struck in this last game on the right lane. So, and Mike bowled phenomenal, as he always does.
He's a pro. He's a pro's pro, isn't he, Sue?
Yeah. Had a good spot
First
today.
half of the game.
Coming in with only having to bowl one game. That's pretty nice, huh?
Yeah, it was good. Now I don't have to qualify at Manor. It's a tough place for me to bowl.
You're going to be happy to receive this again.
Sure am.
Second time you get to take one of those home. Mike Zarcone, our weekly winner, he gets the big trophy. He's going to get to come back in 2 weeks at Manor Lanes. Sue and I will wrap up a wonderful 3-week run here at Allie Brandt Lanes and preview our special show next week. That is next when Beat the Champ continues right after this. Well, another fun week of bowling here at Allie Brandt Lanes and more good competition. We got a real nice, fun little run there from George Szczublewski. He knocked down the wall and he grounded the tank, but he ran into the pros pro and Mike Zarcone, and it's Mike that we're going to see next week.
Right. Well, we knew we'd have a lot of great bowling this week with all the great bowlers that were in the lineup, and you know, we'll see them great bowlers again next week. But until then, we have to deal with some children and a new format that someone will have to explain and have people understand, because it's a little bit tough to understand the new format.
Yeah, so Mike Zarcone will be back 2 weeks when we move everything to Manor Lanes, but next week from here at Allie Brandt Lanes, our special edition show is going to feature the kids, and as Sue said, an interesting format, an interesting approach, but a chance for everybody to see the next generation of great bowlers from up here in Lockport.
Absolutely. They're the top 8 bowlers from the junior program here at Allie Brandt, and they're going to face off against each other in a Baker format.
Yeah, sounds like fun. It will be. Make sure you join us next week. For Sue, I'm Paul Peck. For everybody here at WBBZ, thanks for joining us on another fun-filled and exciting episode of Beat the Champ.